question. It can be one, it can be 10, it can. I think we've had 20 or so at once, so that was good. And I encourage people to jump in the whole time and make comments, ask questions. Maybe we'll get a cat lover on. What do you know?
I hope so.
So,
Swears permitted? Not permitted.
absolutely.
There we
Hello,
are.
bird nerds. Hello,
Hello.
bird nerds. I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. We're going bird adjacent today. I can't think of anything that is more important when we're talking about preserving Australia's bird life and, by extension, the fauna of this amazing island continent, because it's also unique. It's not found anywhere else. That's really the point of it. But one of our introduced animals is devastating it. It's hard to come up with a word that's big enough to really drive home the point of what cats are doing. But to help me do that today is the executive officer and ecologist of the Western Australian, or actually, let's get this right. Is it the West Australia or the West Australian Feral Cat Working Group? Judy Dunlop.
No one's ever asked me that before. Just WA Feral Cat Working Group.
Actually,
I'm sure it's written somewhere.
Actually, it's neither. It's the WA Feral Cat Working Group. There we go. So no wonder I couldn't decide.
That's right.
But I think you guys over there just go West Australia, don't you?
Preferably one word, Westralia. Yep.
Yeah, West Australia. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe we can be our own republic soon.
well, you were late. You were late to the party, and don't you periodically just threaten to go your own way anyway? I mean, isn't that like the standing threat? Secession.
Yeah.
So, all right. Hello. I'm just going to see. Hello, Twitch. Nice to see you, Twitch. Judy, are you one of the born in WA West Australians, or are you a transplant?
I was born in WA, and okay. I grew up in Bunbury, which is a really bogan town, I guess somewhat equivalent to like your Newcastle in New South Wales. But I survived. I didn't get pregnant during high school, and I don't have a hotted up HSV.
Well, there's two famous people I know from Bunbury. Brian Taylor, who played for Collingwood, but is also Richmond, and is a commentator on the TV. And isn't, what's her name? Natalie Barr from Sunrise. She's from Bunbury, I think. So
could be.
I don't know whether she got pregnant in high school in a panel van. So.
I think Jebediah are from Bunbury.
Oh, yeah, Jebediah are Bunbury. Yeah, of course.
And if you're into RuPaul's Drag Race, like me, RuPaul's partner is from Bunbury.
Oh, well, I didn't. Look, I'm not very into the whole RuPaul Drag Race thing. I know it's a thing, but I haven't been watching it, and I certainly didn't know that RuPaul had a partner. Let's stop wasting the Twitch audience, the Facebook audience, and the YouTube audience's time talking about that stuff. Feral cats. How about we start with this? I think this is the easiest way to begin our discussion.
Yeah, that's a big one.
This is amazing. This is the impact of feral cats on Australian wildlife. And let me just make sure we give credit to Stobo Wilson et al. Et al. Is my favourite terminology. Diversity and Distribution 2022. So I snagged this from the WA Feral Cat Working Group website, and you guys snagged it from Stobo Wilson et al. And I'm sure no one's going to mind us talking about it. When when we think about pests and predators and impact on wildlife, we're tempted to go to the fox, aren't we? About it being the problem, and look at the difference in 1.7 million foxes cover 80% of Australia at a density of one fox per 4 square kilometres. So that's disheartening. But look at the cats. 2.8 million feral cats covering 99.9% of the Australian mainland and the islands too, isn't it? That's all the landmass.
Yeah.
But at the same density. So the raw numbers of animals killed,
they're unbelievable.
Can you explain to me, just when we look at the cat kill each year, we got 466, but then there's this asterisk figure.
Yeah, the asterisk. Yeah, so I pinched this from Trish Fleming, who was one of the et als. She presented this recently. So the asterisk includes pet cats. So if you're just looking at ferals for reptiles, that's that 466, and then when you include pet cats as well, 609 million individuals every year. And I mean, obviously, all of these are sort of modelled estimations, but what they've done is, how many cats there are, plus or minus, in a good year and a bad year. How much energy do all of those cats need to keep chugging along around the wilderness? And how many kilograms of animals is that? And then they've gone through every dietary study that exists around Australia to divvy it up between the different groups. And I think, perhaps we don't think about maybe those smaller creatures are a bit less meaningful to people. But when you're thinking about lots of small skinks, legless lizards, small birds, eggs, and then, plenty of rodents and whatnot. And for cats, it's everything from your smallest mouse and gecko-sized creature all the way up to rock wallabies. A 5-kilogram rock wallaby, they'll eat.
One of the things that is really terrifying about these numbers is that insects and frogs aren't even included in the biomass calculations in the stats here.
No.
So
the reason for that is that you don't see them in scats. That's what they've looked at, gut contents and scats. And so if they're eating things like caterpillars, frogs, tadpoles, they don't show up adequately in scat contents. So that you have to assume that those are on top as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I imagine that they're not showing up in scats because they're being completely digested within the animal, or that they're not able to be determined if there are any solid pieces left.
That's right.
As to what they are. But being bird focused, 510 million birds are being lost each year between foxes and cats combined. But it's 265 million birds at a minimum, possibly 400 million.
And you'll see that mammal purple circle has a division of pale purple and dark, and one is native species and one's introduced. So, some of it is made up of rats and mice, and you would assume that some of the birds would include pigeons or something. But yes, I would guess that the majority are native species as well, because we do have quite a lot of native species that are hanging out even in suburbia, and that's where the majority of cats are, is the 3 point something million that live in cities and towns. So yeah, there's a lot.
I was looking at the numbers, and this is, I'm checking from the website, and we'll share some parts of that shortly. But cats came to Australia with the first fleet 1788, but by 1840 they had become feral, and by 1890, so less than 100 years from the first white fellas setting foot on the country, they
Yeah.
were already over 90% of the continent. That's
Yeah, and they are incredibly adaptable. I primarily do my ecology in deserts, so I see camera trap footage of cats cruising around when the camera's reading 45 degrees. Equally, you're going to see them in alpine environments wandering about in the snow. So because they cover every single habitat and across all of the country, they're overlapping with all of our threatened species, and they eat whatever they'll put in their face. So it means that they have an extremely broad spectrum of what they will eat, and it covers pretty much all of our native threatened species.
well. I want to read out three sets of stats which are on the website, and then let's talk
Go for
about
it.
them.
Yeah.
One feral cat in the bush might eat 791 mammals, birds, reptiles, and frogs each year, and 371 invertebrates. So
Yeah.
one cat
One cat.
can knock off nearly 800 creatures, furry and feathered and hoppy creatures, in a year.
And what we know about them is that they're hunters rather than scavengers. So there'll be times when they'll kill an animal and not even eat the whole thing. So one project I was involved with was a bilby reintroduction, and we released a whole pile of bilbies back out into the desert with good cat control. But there was a couple remaining, and they targeted the bilbies. They would kill one per night and only eat the heart, lung, liver, and then leave it. And, as someone who has just sort of flown those bilbies in from another population, tracked them for however many weeks to have it eaten, and they're not even eaten completely. It seems so devastating.
But when you think about sort of a lot of mammalian behaviour, if there's plenty of food around, we do this. You only eat the bits you want, you like.
Yeah.
You leave the other.
Yeah.
You leave the rest of it. I don't know why cats would be any different. If they're quite well fed, they're only taking the most delectable of morsels.
Yeah, and maybe that's chicks and eggs from nests. Maybe that's juveniles. So you can see where how they have such a destructive influence.
Okay. Since European settlement, feral cats, and these are cats living in the wild, so we're not even talking about the pet cats that are out roaming the street but coming home as well. This is just fully feral cats. Have played a significant role in 27 of the 34 native mammal extinctions and 2 of the 9 native bird extinctions and all of the 3 reptile extinctions in Australia.
Yeah.
I mean,
So the birds would be the paradise parrot and one other, which I can't think of off the top of my head.
I can't think of either. I will actually put that on the website when I go to the primary source and check that one out. But I'm going to guess it's going to be an island species.
It could be, it could be some
I would
subspecies of thornbill or something.
I'm thinking that's what it probably is. It's probably a subspecies of something. A further 75 critically endangered or near threatened mammals, 40 birds, 21 reptiles and 4 amphibians are currently threatened by feral cats in Australia.
Yeah, and this is what I sort of say to, when people say, well, it's not their fault. It's not cats' fault that they're feral. Correct. Absolutely correct. But what we have here is a choice. The cats are continuing to threaten species that we still have now. They've wiped out some already, and they are a continuing ongoing threat to that 75 endangered or threatened mammals, birds and reptiles. So there's doing nothing is not an option, basically.
No, that's true. And look, it's not the cat's fault, right? But it's certainly not the native birds, animals, and it's not their fault. It's absolutely not their fault. And if you're someone who wants to preserve our native flora and fauna, you cannot be comfortable with doing nothing. You just can't be. And I don't know why there's conflict with anyone who loves cats, because guess what? Most of the councils now, or a great proportion of them now, say your cat must be contained, and the ones that don't say that, within the next probably 10 years or 15 years, they all will be. So there's just no reason for any of us to be having a discussion about domestic cats, right?
Absolutely.
We don't hate your pet. I don't hate your pet, but I hate you if you let your cat, which is your beloved pet, roam around the streets around my place and hunt native animals and birds.
Yeah,
I don't hate your cat. I hate you.
The way we treat cats is extremely different to the way we treat dogs. It would be unheard of for someone to have their dog roaming around on the streets with the potential to be getting hit by cars, fighting with other animals, getting bitten by snakes. It's for the welfare of your pet as well as the wildlife around it. So really, it is a total win-win for people to be more responsible pet owners. And we are seeing councils come on board with new and inventive ways for people to be better cat owners. And I'm impressed by that, actually. It's really been quite heartening to see it happen.
We'll talk about some of the pluses in a minute, but for the newcomers to the stream, I'll just put this up again, just so you can get an idea of the devastating amount of animals that cats are taking each year. I don't want to let foxes off at all either, but we are talking about cats, and there's control programs out there for foxes, even though they're all underfunded. I'm gathering, but we're going to limit our discussion to cats. It's just astounding, isn't it? How much is taken each year, and
absolutely.
And I was amazed to think of how many cats there were out there. Over 3 million cats. That's just staggering. I think I got the number right, didn't I? 2.8. Sorry, 2.8 million.
And obviously that would change year to year, but
yeah. 2.8 million, and if you add on the pet cats that aren't properly contained, we're probably pushing up to about the 4 million
Yeah.
out there every night. But there's another problem with having the cats out there in the environment that doesn't get talked about a lot, and it really wasn't the focus of my thoughts, Judy, until I was poking around the website. And let's pop it up there. Toxoplasmosis and other diseases.
Yeah.
Tell,
So there's a
tell us what we
few.
know about that.
So what we know about toxo is that it is cat dependent. So without going through the body of a cat, its life cycle isn't complete. It impacts other mammals such as sheep and humans, and it primarily impacts them when they're pregnant. So something that we can put a dollar value on is the abortions of lambs and goats potentially as well when they get infected by toxo while they're pregnant. And so obviously there's some issues with humans as well, harder to calculate dollar values on, but the paper that's linked there did have a go at it. So there's another issue with toxoplasmosis for humans is that it's linked to some mental health issues, so schizophrenia and other sort of erratic behaviour. Cat scratch disease is another one that's really bizarre kind of.
Cat scratch fever.
Yeah, and can be incredibly painful and require hospitalisation. So there are a few things that don't get talked about, and they're not easy to see, and I think that's why, which is fair enough. And the other thing that's quoted there, sarcocystosis, which causes cysts in the meat of sheep, and means that the meat can't be sold.
Yeah, so some of the dollar figures, 7.6 to $18.3 million each year with the losses to the sheep industry. And what have we got there? 8,500 Australians are hospitalised and 550 die each year from cat-dependent diseases. Now, I had no idea it was that many people were dying each year, and I certainly had no idea that it was over 8,500 people are hospitalised from diseases that only exist in our environment from cats. And I'm guessing that most of it. Do you know the way that the do we know whether this is domestic cat problem as much as it's a feral cat problem with?
Yeah, I think it is both. And one way that humans become infected is by touching gardens and kitty litter where cats have buried their poos. But you can see a clear benefit if you are reducing the number of feral cats in the environment. You're reducing these oocysts and other, the way that it's being spread from animal to animal. And so while it's quite difficult to put a dollar value on that loss of wildlife, we can put a dollar value on the losses to agriculture and the costs of hospitalisation.
And the other thing that we often don't think about with the spread of these kind of parasites in the environment is that even if it's not a problem for you, when it rains, if your cat is pooping in your garden, when it rains, it's getting down through the catchments and then spreading everywhere. So it can be in totally, hundreds of kilometres away in farmland or parkland where kids are rolling around on the grass or something. So every time there's a major flood,
Yeah.
all these things get dispersed into areas where they may not have been before. So
Yeah.
massive problem. So of course you should be worming your pet cats regularly. Um,
I
just
don't know that that's going to help with toxo, as far
oh
as I know. Anyway, yeah, no,
oh
it's a blood parasite. Yeah,
oh
um, but yeah, it does persist in the environment more in wetter environments. So Tasmania has more of an issue with toxo in livestock than somewhere like regional South Australia or Northern Territory. Southwest of WA would definitely have some. But yes, overall, that's a message that we're trying to send out to farmers, is that if you can reduce the cats that are patrolling your sheep yards and wandering around in the paddocks, then that's going to be a benefit to you, as well as that kind of harder to value benefit of being able to see native wildlife re-emerge in your location.
okay. So we've talked about the horror stories, and you know, do you have any sort of first-hand stories? I know, we're both living on Twitter, so we see those pictures. I think that Guy Ballard has posted often about the size of the cats that they're coming across when they trap them, and they're not little pussy cats. They're
Large.
massive,
There's a guy. There's a guy in the southwest who emails me every time he shoots one on his property. He sends me a picture of it and how much it weighed, which I appreciate, and I wish I could post to Twitter, but I don't.
Yeah. Give us an idea if he's giving you the weight ranges. What's the biggest, the heaviest cat that you can recall being told about?
I'm not sure, but his are usually around 5 kilos. Like they're big suckers. Not sure. Sorry, I don't know about, because I guess a lot of control programs are not ones where you end up with the body in your hands. Primarily people are either shooting from a distance or they might be using baiting, and I guess trapping is used less often as a broad scale control.
Okay, well let's talk about control measures. You're focused on Western Australia, obviously. So, what is allowed in Western Australia, and what works?
The core message is that there is no silver bullet, because cats are quite clever and resourceful. There's not like there's one option that's going to sort them out. So what we do know is that a variety of techniques over a period of time in a big area, that's going to be the most beneficial. And some stories of success that we do have. All of the islands of Western Australia have been eradicated of feral cats. So cats used to be on Rottnest, for example, eating quokkas. The largest cat eradication in the world in terms of land area is Derek Hartog Island, which is now cat-free. And so the methods that they've used to achieve those big programs are a combination of baiting with 1080 sausage baits where possible, leg hold trapping, and cage trapping, and patrolling to look for tracks to target where those animals are. And then I think they also use detector dogs to try and find the last few as well.
So it's got to be an integrated management program. It's not enough to go and hire, for instance, a team of shooters to come through once a year, or to set up trapping over, intensive trapping for a while. you've got to have everything going all the time. Is that really the way it works?
Absolutely. Like if you're going to put the effort in to make it happen, then go hard or go home. I think French Island have been trapping for something like 10 years, and they did a paper showing that while they had this incredible drop-off of cats, they were never getting those last few, and those last few were enough to keep breeding and keep the feral population sustained. Got to throw everything at it. Another success story that we've got over here in WA, you may have heard that numbats are at an all-time high. If you ever wanted to see a numbat, now is the time.
Now's the time. Yeah.
Now's the time. So Dryandra is a small reserve in the wheat belt, and that's where the numbats primarily are. They're also in the southwest Jarrah Forest as well. But there's a coordinated program where on the national park they're doing quite intensive baiting several times a year with those cat sausages, and then the neighbours have actually got on board, and so all of the landholders are surrounding Dryandra are trapping cats around their yards, and so they're preventing that reinvasion of cats from outside.
I sometimes wonder why we don't use the taxation system more to assist in things that we know work, like predator fencing. We know works if you do it properly. There are lots of examples around the country of small patches of land that have been adequately fenced to keep predators out, and then once they're removed from inside, the little critters and the birds get a chance to bounce back. But I don't think that if you're a landowner, you can claim a special depreciation rate or something, or 100% depreciation, or get a extra loading for doing something like excluding feral cats from your property, which seems to me bonkers. That on one side we've got federal government and state government pouring lots of money into research and control in small areas, but we're not doing anything to incentivize the people who own the private land to do something really, really, really positive, and that only needs to be done once. If they do it right, it only needs to be done once.
I guess there's some pros and cons with fencing, though. I mean, you're making a kind of genetic zoo as well. You know, like if you've got kangaroos in there, then they're stuck, and then it all gets a bit weird. They're not crossing that exclosure fence anymore. Fences are definitely good for specific purposes of helping species that have no ability to survive in the presence of cats. So I'm a mammal person, so I'm going to tell you mammals again. But
go.
Marla, which is a small hair wallaby job, and it protects itself by looking like a bush, which works very well when your predators are goannas and birds of prey. As soon as you've got something with a good sense of smell, and they just get chewed up by cats. So there's no marla on the Australian mainland that are not either behind fences or on an island protected. And the reason for that is that they just get completely cleaned up. So, and that was one of the most common species across the arid zone, used as a food source by Aboriginal people. So yes, fences are good for species like that, but I don't think we can advocate that we should be dissecting the country up everywhere.
No, it's sort of like one of those things where you've got to choose the least bad outcome.
That's it.
Which is I'm not ever going to say you've got to do everything's got to be all this way, but for a landowner that has, say they have some remnant vegetation that is important habitat, and that it does hold significant genetic reservoirs of plants and maybe hopefully some animals. I'd like to see them be given an extra hand to protect those areas,
Yeah.
and and we just don't, if they wanted to, there's just ways that they can get 100% deductibility for certain things. I'd like to see, putting my accountant hat on, I'd like to see conservation measures to be accelerated and
Yeah.
pushed for people, rather than be something that they think of at the end, the last thing they would think of doing.
That's right. And if a farmer or landholder is willing to invest some of their own resources or time into protecting something, then they're going to get the best bang for their buck if they are combining with their neighbours, or they're combining with the reserve next door, or any of that sort of thing. So we would definitely encourage that. And as for tax breaks, look, that's
I know it's a whole different thing, but then but there's also that issue about that you brought up straight away about we're corralling off parts of the land, but if it becomes a cooperative thing with lots of neighbours, and then we can think about interconnecting patches of protected land with other patches, with corridors and things like that. But we're not even at that stage of thinking about it, because we don't have enough of the islands, of the reservoirs protected. Sure. So we've been talking about this kind of stuff, I've been hearing about all these ideas for 30 years, and I just get really disheartened where we don't seem to have got too far down the line. So Western Australia is leading in that all the offshore islands are arcs, on their own, which is a great thing. And we want to see every state having that done, and then more areas within each state and territory being protected, and then move from there.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's the best we can hope for.
Yeah. How proactive are the government over there? Like, is it, if we talked about the top 10 conservation issues in Western Australia, is cat eradication, feral cat eradication, in the top 10?
I can't speak for the WA government, but in my opinion, cat management, certainly, if not eradication. Eradication is a very difficult aim.
It's got to be the aim. It's got to be the aim, though, doesn't it? I mean,
I don't think any pest,
even if you can't achieve it, that's got to be the aim, doesn't it? I mean,
got to be the aim.
I mean, who were the worst football team this year in the waffle?
You're speaking to the wrong person.
Oh, okay, damn. I was hoping you could tell me, and then I could go, well, their aim is to be premiers. It's not achievable this year. They're on the bottom, but it's certainly their aim, It's just like, you got to shoot for the stars, don't you? So
shoot for the stars. That's it. Yeah. So I mean, what we can do is use multiple techniques, target your critical species that you've identified are most in trouble, target areas that are particularly special. The Threatened Species Commissioner's priorities for the next 10 years have been released, and cats are definitely featuring a lot on there. They've named a bunch of species that need particular attention. So, yeah, I think cats, there is a movement of people being more in favour of it, and we're seeing that being reflected in the change in legislation for city councils and that sort of thing.
What are those Western Australian changes that that you're aware of? Like, is most of metropolitan Perth now keep your cat inside, all cats desexed? Is it pretty standard?
They can't enforce containment, but they can, desex, microchip, and that sort of thing. So City of Fremantle have put forward some rules where they're outlining cat prohibited areas. So they've got all of their beaches, their parks, reserves, and their like median strips and nature areas. Those are all cat prohibited areas as of soon, I guess. So that's the big step forward in just getting people to have their cats more like we treat dogs. It would not be acceptable for dogs to be roaming around in nature reserves.
Now, I'm fascinated that you said they can't enforce cat containment.
No, it's listed specifically in the Cat Act.
Can you explain that? That seems bonkers.
So the state legislation, which is the WA Cat Act, says specifically that local councils may designate cat prohibited areas, but they may not enforce containment.
Okay, so if your cat isn't killing native animals at night, when you've let it out and gone to bed and been too lazy to get up to let it back in after it's dumped its toxoplasmosis problems on your neighbours, as long as it doesn't go and kill on the beach or in other designated areas, it's okay. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. City of Freo have been pretty smart about it, and they've made everything cat
designated. Yeah.
So well, that's even roads and footpaths. So if it's not on your property, then that's a problem.
Yeah. So is that because there was an outcry from cat lovers, or people were preempting a possible outcry from cat lovers? That
not at all. It's just that the Cat Act is older than the local government rules, and so
why don't they amend the Cat Act?
Because that's a state government level issue, not a local government.
Oh yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I'm assuming the state government is one of the partners in the feral cat thing, isn't it? Who we
DVCA and DPIRD are, yeah.
Okay, so the state government is part of the partnership for the feral cats. This is what, and I'm not making a criticism of the state government, but it just seems to me to be something you could do to amend the Cat Act, so that you could say, instead of having to have people out there trying to catch cats or stop cats getting onto beaches and whatnot, just say to the pet owner, keep your cat in. There's your first issue, and it doesn't become a public cost to stop that animal killing other animals.
Yeah, look, I guess we try.
Wow.
I try to stay on the feral cat side and stay out of the politics of domestic cats.
But one drives the others, doesn't it? Because then you have people who have pet cats. I know, and don't get me wrong, everyone. I know that the problem is already there, but if you manage to clean an area up, shall we say, and this is the same with weeds, right? You only need one idiot to go and dump some cats from an unspayed cat in a litter that they don't want after they got a cat for Christmas, to put it somewhere to bring the problem in. It's the same as dumping your Cape Ivy or your Agapanthus or your whatever, your bone seed. You're too slack to go to the tip, so you drive out in the bush with your trailer and throw it off on a roadside. Same bloody thing, right?
I guess that's where the sterilising animals and chipping them so that people know who owns that cat. That's where those all come in. Yeah.
Yeah. Gee, so where are the big wins apart from the islands? Have we got parts of the state? Any? Well, you're a desert mammal person. Have we got significant reserves where I mean, I don't know. I'm not enough of a mammal person to know where the really significant sites are in WA, but are the
So
controls happening?
Yeah, DBCA do bait a number of the national parks and conservation reserves, and then AWC and Bush Heritage do their own as well. And there's a place right out in the middle of the desert that I used to work called Mudawar, which is near Walloona. And that is a huge reintroduction site where cats, it's not fenced, cats are managed and kept at a low number. And then we've got bilbies, possums, and golden bandicoots roaming around. And the effect of the cat baiting and cat management at that place is that other things have benefited, like mulgara, small chompy mammals. And it's an amazing place in terms of having huge diversity of reptiles and birds and mammals. So there are some places that we can look to as these are examples of good wins, and this is what we should be trying to replicate in other places.
Now, again, I might be asking you for an example that you don't have at hand, but when in any of these places where the cats have been effectively managed on a sort of broadacre, on a broadacre scale, how quickly do the native animal populations bounce back? Are the populations or are the species quite resilient and able to re-establish given a couple of good seasons?
Yeah, I guess it depends. So some of your arid zone stuff especially will be boom bust, and they will come back as soon as there's good rain. Others would take longer, and maybe they need to be reintroduced because there's no method of them getting to that place. And I would expect that some really long living things might not be able to just kind of recolonize or boom back, and perhaps you need some assistance like a captive breeding program or something like that, or a fenced enclosure where they can build up numbers and you can start releasing them out.
It's a jigsaw, isn't it? Like or it's a mosaic rather than a jigsaw. Really, there's so many approaches that can be taken. Obviously, with the bird focus, for me, I'm always thinking about the two, or actually probably three, maybe four southwest species that are in serious trouble. Western ground parrot, obviously, noisy scrub bird. I think the western bristlebird, and I don't know how the western whipbird is going these days, but are there management programs in place in the areas, particularly for the western ground parrot and the noisy scrub bird?
Yeah, absolutely. And those are examples that have multiple threats impacting them. So obviously wildfire plus cats plus some level of fragmentation or habitat loss, those are all operating together. And so they are definitely managing those, but it's a difficult trio because you don't sort of know which is having the most impact. At what stage of its life is it having an impact? Which bits are hitting it hardest? So, it's definitely a combined fire, ferals, and habitat situation there. I know that I think they have some felixes to protect western ground parrots these days. So they're sort of throwing everything that they can at them.
Yeah, I saw. I've put out the feelers to get some people from talk to us about the western ground parrot, but I think there was some reasonably good news on their front recently. So hopefully they can speak to that shortly.
Yeah, I'm not up to date on that one. Sorry.
Let's talk about the actual working group, the West Australian WA Feral Cat Working Group. What's it comprised of? Just give us a short potted history. And I think, is it tomorrow? Is a significant day for the group?
That's it. So we recognised that without some level of collaboration between the different agencies who are doing cat things, they're not going to get much of headway. And so the working group was formed. It includes DBCA, which is the National Parks, DPIRD, which is the Agricultural Department, Indigenous Desert Alliance, AWC, Australian Wildlife Conservancy, Bush Heritage Australia, the National Feral Cat Task Force, and the West Australian NRMs, and WOBSI, which is the West Australian Biodiversity Science Institute. So all of those together, which is 8 organisations, makes up the working group, and I'm the executive officer attempting to wrangle them all. The goal is that basically there's a one-stop shop of information. If you need to know things, then this is the Brains Trust who can probably help you. And if we can't help, then we know who to ask. If you want to know about management actions that are available and what techniques are required, what permits are required to access each one, and this is the place to go. If you want to know about the impacts of cats, this is the place to go. We're going to launch the website tomorrow. So that's the exciting, it is live, but by the time this podcast goes out, it will be launched. And we have a feral cat symposium next year so that people can share information. And I'm really excited for that it will be, the goal is to be sharing some wins and sharing, things that work. I don't know about you, but I've had enough talks where people have camera traps and say, we saw heaps of cats and we linked more cats to loss of diversity. So I think we're ready to move on from that point and talk about what to do about it.
Yeah, well, I'd probably push that a little bit further. I think we're beyond talking about what to do about it, and we just get on and do it, do something. I'm mindful that you don't want to do the wrong thing, but sometimes just doing something. I think when we're right at this tipping point for so many species, that we've got to have a real crack at doing something. And
absolutely.
Look, and we've only been talking about one of the major threats, haven't we? And that's cats. But
yeah,
if you do the things that take care of cats, I am assuming, and you can probably tell me, Dr. Judy, if using most of the methods to control cats also impacts the number of foxes.
Yes, it will, because foxes are very sensitive to 1080. And I do just want to have a little moment of 1080 myth busting here. Common things you hear about 1080 are that it gets into the waterways and that it spreads around. Those are not true. The reason that we use 1080, and one of the great benefits, is that the majority of our Australian native species are somewhat resistant to it, and that is because it's from native Gastrolobium pea plants. And so our native species have co-evolved with this toxin. And my classic example of that is that a brush-tailed possum from the southwest of WA could eat 35 fox baits before dying if it could fit them all in its face. So the reason that we use 1080 as a toxin for cats and foxes is that they're not at all resistant to it, but other species are. And that resistance changes through the food chain. So that your herbivores, like your bronze-winged pigeons, they stuff gastrolobium seeds down as fast as you can imagine. And then the omnivores are slightly less resistant, and then your carnivores are less resistant again, but they still maintain some. And so it means that even your small native species are probably able to eat some baits and not have a problem with it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, as you said, there's so many myths about the uses of poisons in the environment. With cats particularly, what's worse, losing some animals to toxicity, to poisoning, or losing all of them to the cats? And then
that's right.
And if you add on top habitat loss as well, and then perhaps devastating droughts, which happen in a cycle, and then for ground dwellers or something, periods of flood. When you add all the things that they have to deal with anyway, and add habitat loss and predation, well, we're not really giving them much of a chance. And I mean,
it is
seriously,
the
it's just time.
Scenario for some. Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's just time, isn't it? Now, you're obviously the West Australia Feral Cat Working Group. Do you know if there's similar bodies that are taking the integrated approach with all the land managers and responsible bodies getting together across other parts of the country? And as an extension to that question, do you all feed information to each other with whichever bodies are there?
I'm the only state one, but there is a national feral cat and fox management coordinator, Jill Bassnett. She sits in the Threatened Species Commissioners group. And yeah, she and I chat all the time to, help. Do you know about this one? Yeah, so that's good. Yeah, we have a lot of back and forth communication about what's happening in other places. And yeah, I mean, both of us are trying the same thing. What works in other places? Can we recommend that? What advice can we give people who are frustrated and trying to have good outcomes for wildlife?
Who's going to, or who should be coming to the symposium? It's on Valentine's Day in next year. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Feb 14 and 15. So
extremely romantic, yes.
Yes. Who should be coming? I noticed that there's the optional on the 16th, the optional field trip to the Dryandra woodland, and bush stone curlews are there. So who wouldn't want to go?
Oh, right? Yeah, they hang out just next to the huts, and then they scream in a very disconcerting way in the night. One of my very first volunteer trips was to Dryandra back in the day where there was no phone reception at all there, and I went there, and the guy I was working with went to bed really early, so I'm just kind of by myself in this little old hut, and then there's this terrifying screaming ringing out through the woodland, and I really thought someone was being murdered in the campground. And then in the morning he said, "Oh yeah, don't worry about that. It's just the bush stone curlews."
Just the stone curlews going on. So
yes, who should come? Anyone who wants to hear about the latest research. We work that traditional owners are doing on country, hear from local councils who are trying to make changes. If you want to, if you're industry and you have some tenure that you want to do cat things on, these are the people to talk to. So we're really kind of hoping that it will facilitate some projects actually getting off the ground because people talk face to face. We're having a strong push for traditional owner rangers to come and share the troubles that they're having with cats or the solutions that they have. And yeah, it's going to be 2 full days and then the optional trip to Dry Under.
Cool. So if you're interested, wafcwg.org.au on the website that is launching tomorrow, but that is live already. I'm guessing, Judy, if people want to know, like, if there's land managers or even students of ecology or whatnot who are interested, they should be reaching out to you, shouldn't they, and saying,
yeah, on the website there's a little sign up for more information, and then I'll have everyone's email addresses and I can send them information when we have it all planned out.
Great. Now, before we finish up, I just want to take the opportunity to find out a little bit more about you. You opened the door there with your research that you were doing, and you stated that you're a mammal person, not a bird person, so to speak. But
I call myself a bird noticer. If birds are around me, I'll look at them, but I don't go to find them.
Okay, well, but we can call you a bird nerd if you're a bird noticer. Yeah. I think that's definitely you're in the club. Where did you do your undergrad and your postgrad, and what did you work on?
I studied at UWA for my undergrad, and then I did my PhD at Murdoch on a huge fauna translocation from Barrow Island out to that place called Madawa that I was talking about. The Barrow translocation was part of the offsets for Chevron's gas plant that's there, and so they provided offset money to benefit the species that were impacted. And so all up from that, we moved 975 individual animals of 8 or 9 species to 5 different locations. So it was a massive effort. And then my PhD, I followed the ones that were at Madawa specifically.
And what's been the longer? How many years ago was that the translocations occurred?
10 years.
What's the current state of play? I'm guessing you watch with interest all the time.
They have there's an enclosure for the species that can't cope with cats. So there's bilbies, brush-tailed possums, and golden bandicoots on the outside of the fence. Marla, booties, which is burrowing bettong, and golden bandicoots on the inside of the fence. We also released shark bow mice, but they all got fanged by mulgara. So that was a really big restoration project, basically trying to put all of the mammal fauna that used to be there back. And then from the bird side, there were 2 bird species that we also moved from Barrow Island to the Montebellos, and that was the spinifex bird and black and white fairy wren. And this is a fact that annoys bird nerds. I'd only seen the black and white version of the fairy wren for a long time before I saw the blue and white version.
I can see how that might annoy some people. Go, oh my god! Fanged. Does fanged mean et? They were all et.
Yeah. If you've seen a mulgara, it's got a lot of fangs. So yes, chewed up. And then since then, I've worked on northern quolls. I'm wearing my quoll earrings to be a quoll chick.
we're not getting a
in
really
the
good
Pilbara.
look there, but you'd have to get a fair bit closer for a good critique of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, worked on northern quolls in the Pilbara for 7 or 8 years. The Pilbara is the last stronghold that doesn't have cane toads. So, but it does have mining companies that like to dig up rocks, and quolls also like rocks. So we really needed better information on what the quoll population was doing Pilbara-wide to make informed decision about what impacts mining or other things we're having. And yeah, until the toads arrive, it's going to be the best quoll population around. And then from there, cats. So yeah, I've gone from being bilby chick to quoll chick to cat chick.
And I was just thinking about, we're talking about the threats, and if it's not the cats or the foxes or blowing up the habitat or cutting it down, it's the cane toads.
That's it, yeah.
I mean, that's why the whole thing, it's an emergency, for crying out loud. Let's just stop talking and start doing.
Yeah. Some days I just have to wear my giraffe onesie and curl up on the couch, but other days I am enthused about conservation.
How I sometimes just don't even like bringing this up, but the bad news, the doom scrolling and whatnot. Now, I'm not working in the field day after day, and I'm not doing surveys that year after year you're seeing the numbers depleting, and the evidence is there of the efforts not bearing much positive fruit. Is it difficult as an ecologist to stay plugged in and positive?
Yes. That's the short answer.
So what do you do, Judy, to sort of manage that?
I've been asking myself this question as well. Some days I think I might become a bus driver instead. Seems a lot less complicated. Yeah, I guess the things that reinvigorate me are going back to basics and going back to the reason that I enjoy this work. And that is usually when I'm out bush. It's not when I'm reading bad news. And I do, things that aren't necessarily my specific job. So bird noticing is actually quite a nice outlet for me, because nobody is forcing me to do it. I'm just doing it for my own enjoyment. It's quite mindful, isn't it? I guess birding. I think that's the draw card of why people get very obsessive, is that mindfulness of focusing on just where you are in that moment and enjoying it. I'm quite into photography, probably for the same reason.
Oh, so bird photography as well as animal photography?
Only if I can get close enough to them, yeah.
Yeah, so... All right. Well, look, you've opened up the door. I didn't think we'd be able to hit a couple of the bird emergency bird nerd questions, but let's.
Go on, hit me.
Yeah, let's go with where's your favourite place that you like to go bird noticing?
Well, I'm quite good at Pilbara birds, so that's better. Places like Karajini are exceptional because you get the desert ones as well as a whole bunch of other things that have come in for the water. So Dale's Gorge, are you familiar with Karajini at all?
No.
Fell off the couch.
Oh, he was sleeping so much he's fallen off the couch. Good on him.
So Dale's Gorge in Karajini, you get Western Duigenes and 28s and Western bowerbirds all cruising around because there's the water and figs and all of that stuff. Hello.
Oh, come on. Come and say hello. Come on.
Come here. No, she's busy.
You're busy
Yes,
waking up.
I love that, and I love just being able to sit and sit by water and wait for them to come in. That's pretty great. And the islands off Karratha, the Dampier Archipelago, and the Montebellos, they're pretty special for heaps and heaps of things coming through. Lots of shorebirds that I don't know which ones are which.
So you've got lots of favourite places.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where's your local patch when you go bird noticing? Is it on your dog walk that you go bird noticing?
No, they don't walk. They're not too lazy for that. On the balcony, actually, we have quite a lot of things cruise through. I've got pied butcherbird family that hang out in my yard. I guess because there's dogs and no cats, they tend to bring their fledglings to hang out in our yard. Wattlebirds that go bonkers for my big eucalypt flowers, and
Is that just the brush wattlebird, the West
red.
Australian version? I see you've got the red as well. Have you got the brush, the little wattlebird / Western wattlebird there?
Oh, not that I've seen in the yard, no.
Okay, but you have the reds. That's good. And Carnaby's black cockatoo. That's a good.
Carnaby's and red-tailed blacks fly over. That's pretty nice. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. And I had a mopoke sitting on the veranda once.
Or a boobook owl for some people.
Yeah, correct.
Might want to know that. Okay, well, that's all pretty groovy. So what? Well, this is the hardest question that you'll ever get. What's your favourite bird?
Oh, that's easy. Pheasant cuckoo.
Oh, fair income.
Yeah.
Where did you see? I mean,
the first pheasant cuckoo I ever saw was at Wittenoom. You know, the closed asbestos town. You can sort of, when you drive past, you can still see some of the buildings that are there at the entry to the town. And it's an odd place because it is a ghost town. Nobody lives there anymore. Kind of creeping around in this bizarre, empty, falling down town. And this thing explodes out of the spin effect, hits a fence, and then falls on the ground and ran away. And my workmate and I were like, what was that? It was a pheasant cuckoo being too uncoordinated to fly or land on the fence. And the fact that they sound like Dr. Zoidberg as well makes them my favourite.
Yeah, they're pretty fabulous birds. I've only managed to see them twice, and pretty amazing. We don't have many of them down here in Melbourne, so
a bird that makes you laugh. That's a good one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're kind of like they make me feel like I'm watching the apostle birds. You know, they're ridiculous birds as well. So bloody good. All right. Well, I think we've come to that part of the show where we would call it the end. So I'll just give an opportunity for those watching to maybe pose a question or a comment if they would like to. Facebook love. We got some nice Facebook love from Chris Coburn. Jeez, Chris is keen. He was on the earlier stream, the midday stream. So I suppose we could probably say that's the benefit of having wall-to-wall The Queen is Dead coverage on the TV, is that people are coming to watch our live streams to get away from it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I guess, Judy, I'll just ask you what you think what do you think the priorities are in mammal conservation for Australia? Like if you had to say the top, I don't know, 2 or 3 priorities.
As
If
in
you was
species or threats?
no, just generally, if you were able to hijack Tanya Plibersek's desk for a day and take over her powers and were granted 3 wishes, what would you do?
I would probably wish to stop removing the habitat that we do have, improve some of that habitat somewhat, and actively work towards not having any new extinctions.
That seemed like
That's a pretty easy list.
They feel like pretty fair wishes. And thank you for the extra Facebook like there. Now I'm guessing it's Jill Elizabeth or Elizabeth Gill. I'm not sure what's correct. Maybe you can tell me. I'm assuming it's Gill. Here we go. We've got a comment. Someone's going to fix me up on that one. Oh no, it's Chris. Here we go. There we are. Chris is on holidays. That's why he's been able to get 2 live streams in. And there we are. I did get it right. Thanks, Jill. I thought it had to be Jill, but I just wondered whether you know sometimes you sign up for something and it asks for your name and you put your surname first, and then for the rest of your life you're stuck with Dunlop Judy instead of Judy Dunlop. So I just wondered whether it was actually Elizabeth Gill, but no, it's Jill Elizabeth. Thanks very much for clearing that up, Jill. Good on you, Chris. Two doses of me for the day. That's a bit like what was it, like Epsom salts? Judy, anything else you'd like to add before you give the greyhound a cuddle? Podcast listeners, that's what we're talking about. There's a greyhound that fell off the couch because it was in such a deep sleep. There we are. And now come over for a cuddle.
Yes.
And of course, doing what greyhounds in homes do, slothing around. So very good.
Well, yeah.
Any further things you want to sort of add before we wrap up, Judy? I mean, the symposium's on next year, so if you're interested, if you're a land manager or a student or just interested, get involved. Oh, yeah. There we go. There's something. I'll put this up. I'll put this up, Judy.
I'm aiming to have things. Some. Yeah, there you go. Easy. Register for the symposium if you want to find out some more information. And I'm hoping to have some funding to assist with students come over and present new research. So, yeah, good. Hit me up. If you're a student who does good things and needs a bit of help coming over to WA, then we can possibly give you a hand.
And if you'd like to be a sponsor, look, interested in sponsoring the symposium, you can do that. So, hey, Hemsworths, instead of bloody reanimating the thylacine, why don't you do something absolutely fucking practical and sponsor the symposium? And, hey, yeah, 2 Hemsworths are better than 1. You can put in double the amount and all the students could get there. How good would that be? There we are. Look at that.
No worries, Jill.
Thanks, Jill. We always like some positive feedback. I hope you do like the podcast because it's a lot of fun making it because I get to talk to people like Judy day in, day out, and spread some good news. All right.
Thanks, Grant.
Hopefully we can find another reason. Yeah, well, look, let's try and find another reason. Maybe we'll track down some cool, well, I shouldn't say cool statistics. Maybe we can talk about some case studies or something further down the track, maybe as a lead into the symposium, and just remind people that it's coming up and talk more cats.
Sounds good.
talk
A
more
few of
dead cats, maybe. Or maybe, look, not dead cats, just non-existent cats. That would be good.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be great to drive around in the bush in Australia and not see cat eyes reflected in your headlights?
Yeah. I mean, I know you're wrapping up, but one thing that I'm always struck by is that the first settlers' journals, when they talk about all of the stuff just annoying the crap out of them, there was it sounded like there was animals just bouncing around all the time, eating all their food supplies. That is not the case now. There's a very beautiful video that I can send you that some traditional owners put together, and they said the bush is very quiet now, and that really breaks my heart.
Well, please do, and we'll pop it below. We've got to do this on YouTube, don't you? Oh, below, links below, or whatever. If you send me the link or send me the video, we'll pop it in, or I'll embed it, or do whatever it is you can do. Thanks for everyone who's been watching and contributing. That's always fun. Thanks, Judy, for all your efforts. And look, let's not leave everyone off. All right, let's just run through who the team is. Susan Hunt, she's a chair apparently.
She's the chair.
Yep. There's you. That's a cool hat, by the way. Still got it?
Yeah, I've even cut my hair at the Akubra line.
Oh, very good, very good. Dr. Bruce Weber. I don't know what's going on with my mouth. It's not working properly today. Program Director for Ecosystem Processes and Threat Mitigation at the West Australian Biodiversity Science Institute, and that's what you said before, the WOBSI or the WABSI. Jane O'Malley, CEO, Peel Harvey Catchment Council, representing the 7 natural resource management regional groups. Dr. Dave Elgar. What does Dave do? National Feral Cat Task Force. Okay, that makes sense, doesn't it? And Elizabeth McClellan.
From Bush Heritage.
Going to say that's a pretty famous name, isn't it? And the working group: Rachel Paltridge, Ron Shepherd, Tim Allard. People should be pretty aware of all of those, I would say, maybe particularly Tim. And Dr. France Daly. Gee,
from BBCO.
It's a stellar group.
It is. It is.
And it's not like time limited, that it's going to wrap up in 3 years or anything like that. The aim is that it's just an ongoing cooperative body that achieves great outcomes.
Yes, but my position, of course, is only time limited. So we've got an NRM grant that funds me for part-time 3 years. So we'll see what happens after that.
Okay, well, where was that other button? Sponsorship. Hey, Chris and Liam Hemsworth.
Yeah.
Yeah. If some of your movie star money is sitting around and you got nothing to do with it, there's plenty of positions like Judy's that need to be funded. And I mean, fair income, part-time. Let's make it full-time for 10 years, right? Come on, Chris. Come on, Liam. I might even go and watch your movies if you do that. Fantastic. Thanks, Judy. Thanks, everyone, for watching, commenting. I'm a bird nerd. I'm Grant. This is the Bird Emergency. That's Judy, Dr. Judy Dunlop. And you can check out all of the amazing bird nerd and bird adjacent interviews that we've done. Just subscribe to the Bird Emergency on YouTube, thebirdemergency.com/YouTube or thebirdemergency.com. Thanks, Judy.
Ta-ta.
See you, everyone.